Welcome to WagerTalk TV. I am Kelly Stewart, joined today by Steve Merrill of WagerTalk.com. And Steve, bottom line, March Madness is here, and I want you to help out some new bettors or some bettors who may have some questions. We have teams that have never faced each other, and that makes it kind of an interesting handicap. Tell me how you go in to March Madness. I know you dive in head first.
Yeah, of course, conference tournaments, I look a lot at the regular season meetings, but I really consider March Madness to be the NCAA tournament, the NIT maybe. NIT is more about motivation. You got to be very careful when you're handicapping that. But the NCAA tournament, the big dance is the real deal. Everybody's excited. You know you're going to get a Class A effort. But it is tricky because you have teams that have like really no common opponents, at least in the first couple rounds, and they do that on purpose. The committee is not allowed to match up conference opponents until like the second or third round if possible. So what I like to look at is matchups, and there's certain styles of play in college basketball. Some teams play fast, some teams play slow. And as a rule of thumb, a slow down half-court team, especially an NCAA tournament half-court team, which is a good team by definition, can really cause havoc for teams that like to play fast. So if we get those matchups, we always defer to the slow down half-court defensive teams. And Kelly, I think it works even better on the quick turnaround. And that would be the second and fourth round days, the round of 32 and the round of 16, or the round of 8 rather. Because both teams have only one day of rest and prep. So there again, a unique style of play can cause havoc for teams that don't have a lot of preparation time. So I look at head coaching, I look for half-court slow-down defense. And we've seen this over the years. Teams that have pulled upsets, teams that have been Cinderella stories. Way back in 2011, Shaka Smart with VCU, they had the play-in round. They went all the way to the Final Four. He had a half-court trapping defense that caused havoc. Loyola Chicago was a slow-down half-court team. Butler, when they made back-to-back runs, is an 8 seed a decade ago. Brad Stevens played half-court slow-down basketball back then. So whenever you can find a slow-down half-court team against a fast up-tempo team, especially with just one day's rest and prep, it always makes my short list and is something that's worked quite well for me over the years in the NCAA tournament.
Steve, this is what's always fascinating to me about March Madness is as line makers, we have, so many of those guys that are our friends. And we work with power ratings, we do other things. But when you have two teams with no common opponents who have never played each other, that line still comes into play all the time. Let's talk about line shopping and why it is so important during the month of March.
Yeah, Kelly, it's a great point. It amazes me to the day. I've been doing this for almost 30 years now, how accurate these NCAA tournament game, the lines are, because like you said, they're totally different conferences. Nobody played each other from those conferences. You have big boys against small, Cinderella mid-majors. And yet every half point matters at any point in the season. Now, obviously, the conference tournaments in early March, it makes sense because they have 14, 16, 18 common opponents. And you can blindly look at the conference-only stats and pretty much figure out what the point spread should be based on margin of victory. But in the NCAA tournament, the lines remain very sharp as well. And that's because the odds makers have 30-plus games of data for every school going back to November. So we always talk about line shopping as one of the keys to being a long-term sports investor, a long-term winner. But it's critical in March Madness. And this means that you don't just have one sports book account. You have 4 or 5. And if you're laying 7, 7, 7, you lay 6.5 in another book. If you're taking plus 8, 8, 8, you find it 8.5 to take somewhere else. That half point is going to matter as much, if not more so, in March. And, I use oddslogic.com every day on my screen. It's what the sports books use behind the counter. And it's also live injury updates, real-time scores. If you want to do in-game betting or halftime betting, which I highly recommend in the NCAA tournament, those live score updates are very important also. So, yeah, pay attention to every half point, but set yourself up with 4 or 5 outs and make sure you get that extra half point for free every play you make.
Absolutely. Oddslogic.com. If you guys want to head over there and check it out. It is the best odds screen out there. Steve, I have a question, right? Every year I've got a couple of futures tickets in pocket, back from December, January, maybe even February. But come March, people are always like, well, who do you like to win the whole thing? And I feel like they're kind of late to the party at that point, no?
No question about it. I'm not a big futures player for several reasons. First of all, you normally don't get a good odds because in most sports books, all the futures are yes bets, plus money, will they win it? They don't give you the no, right? So they're going to skew the true odds on every one of those bets. And then on top of that, they're holding your money, for 4, 5, 6 months. If you're playing these futures in November, they're holding your money till the first week of April. So you have to have an extra edge to tie up bankroll for 6 months when you could be churning that over every 3 hours with a regular basketball game. And then on top of that, the odds usually aren't good to start with. So if you're going to play futures, whether it's early season or even now, I think you want to look for long shots because, first of all, you're not tying up as much capital. Like a 50-1 long shot, you can put a small little sprinkle on them. Even so, though, whether you're playing a favorite or a long shot, I think you're better off just doing a money line parlay. And that might sound complicated, but it really isn't. For example, say you like Team A to win the whole thing. You bet $100 on them in game one, and you just keep rolling over the profit on a money line bet in games 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, with a really high seed against a 16 seed or a 15 seed, I'd probably wait a round or two because you're not going to get much on the payoff if they're minus 2,000 or minus 20,000 on the money line or whatever. But not only do you get a better payoff normally by doing a money line rollover parlay, the other nice aspect is if a star player gets hurt and that team lucks into a win or he gets hurt at the end of the game and they're still alive, you could just stop and lock up your profit and not have to continue to go in the other game. So it's really a win-win opportunity, and you get a better payoff normally as well. So do a test NCAA tournament, pick a couple teams you might like and just log it along the way. And I guarantee you're going to probably get a better payday by doing a money line parlay. And it also segues back to what we just talked about. If you have 4 or 5 sportsbook accounts, each game you can get the best money line price on that team and build the parlay better that way as well. And I forgot to mention, if you want to try that odds logic for free, go to oddslogic.com/SM. Free 7-day trial. Kelly Stewart, you can use it too.
Oh, good, Steve, as if I didn't already have an Odds Logic
I
account.
know, but
Joke's
you might want
on
to.
you, Steve Merrill. You guys can catch him here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel every single day of the week. Great stuff.